My dad isn't white.
Mhm.
So my granddad wasn't white, and he was a black man in the 60s who married my white grandmother. And my father is his son, his oldest son, and then I'm my father's oldest son. So
Okay,
I might look quite white, but if you would see a sort of a genealogy of my family, it's not. And I got to hear about how in the 60s and the 70s, my dad had to go and break some kid's arm with a baseball bat because he was racially abusing his younger brother and things like this. It's not my family is aware, I am aware of what it's like. And I can only imagine how difficult it was for my nan on a
but you have that story. You have that story. You have that narrative as a part of your family, as part of your legacy.
Yeah,
why
sure.
should someone come around and tell you to forget that because it's not important?
Well, no, it's not important. That's the thing. I don't sit there and go, well, something happened. I mean, and my family was incredibly poor. My dad and his 6 brothers lived in a caravan for about 4 years of their life before they were given a council house by the state. They unbelievably poor. And yet now my father owns his own house, nice 4-bedroom house. He owns it outright. He's had a nice, comfortable career in the military. He's done very well for himself. And it's all because he made the right decisions and just worked for what he has. He didn't expect handouts, and he didn't sit there going, it's someone else's fault that I'm poor.
Right. So and again, right, we're using anecdotal information to generalize a generalized trend when in reality, the Black community doing exactly what you said that they should be doing, which, whether you said it or not, they would be doing it anyway. But by doing this, we're also guilty of being too focused on the Black community. I mean,
I don't think you are. I don't think you can be too guilty of being focused on your own communities.
But that's the whole complaint, right? That's the whole complaint against Black Lives Matter. As you say, we do a disservice to ourselves by not including other races or racial.
There's a difference between Black Lives Matter and Black communities. Like we've already established, most of the people rioting in Milwaukee were not Black Lives Matter supporters. These people are not part of your movement. And there are also loads and loads and loads of poor white people who suffer from beatings and shootings and whatnot at the hands of the police that can't support Black Lives Matter because they're white, or at least they feel that they can't. It doesn't appeal to them because they're white.
And that's the saddest part about the story, right? The saddest part about this entire conversation is that as many white people who are killed by the police who are unarmed, the fact that they feel like they can't join with Black Lives Matter, who are fighting for the same exact cause, that's just tragic, right? But what I've seen more than anything else are people who are not genuinely concerned about those people, those white people who were killed. That, the child, the 6-year-old child in Louisiana who was killed. They don't really care about them until it's time that they can use them as a prop, saying, oh, all these white people are being killed by police, and you don't see us out there saying white lives matter. Well, you should be out there protesting when the police are killing children and killing unarmed teenagers, like 2 teenage girls in 2014 killed by police officers, unarmed. I mean, white people should be out there protesting more than Black people, but because we've taken it upon ourselves to say we're tired of the police killing us, now we're the bad people.
I think the difference, and again, I don't think that you're bad people or anything like that. I think the difference is that there isn't really a white identity as such, or at least they're not in popular parlance. And the best example of it is 2008 with Bill O'Reilly and the presidential nominee then, John McCain, who was a presidential nominee on Fox News, right? Millions of people watch this. He said that America is run by white Christian men, right? So America culture is white culture. And he lamented the fact that America, just a clip on YouTube, you could get it. Sure. Lamented the fact that America is becoming browner, right? So it shows you that America default position is white Christian men, and there's components of that have to be fought back against just to bring us in parity. And what people feel too often is that equality feels like oppression when you've always been at the top of the pack. I really hate that phrase, because one thing I always see that, and I encountered that phrase with feminists who were actively trying to restrict other people's freedom of speech, and they were saying, well, equality just feels like oppression when you've been at the top. It's like, well, what you're trying to get your speech at the expense of someone else's, that is a form of oppression.
Well, it's two different things, right? So yeah, you have the people who demand a safe space, and then they want to have a space to say whatever they want to say without anybody pushing back. I mean, that's the number 2 place where I conflict with Black Lives Matter generally, right? I don't believe in safe space. If you come into the public square and you have something to say, someone else, no matter how vitriolic you think it is, they should have the right to say it back.
Fucking sing
We're
it,
actually
man.
talking about
Preach.
two different things here.
Yeah. Well, no, I'm just saying that I don't like that phrase because it's an easy way of dismissing someone else's concerns without even looking at whether they're legitimate or not. And
yeah,
so
I mean, if there are, you know, and I hate to slam people, but they're overly simplistic and they're looking for an easy way out. That's what you do with that. But in this case, we're talking about very clear examples of people who are in power and try to use their control of power right then to keep other groups from coming into parity. That is oppression. That is a systemic problem that has to be addressed. And that's exactly what the presumptive nominee of a major party in the United States had a conversation with a top propagandist in the United States. Like, these are not fringe examples. These are mainstream people who are inventing the demise of white Christian men as the main power structure in America.
Yeah, but I mean, do you really see that as a white identity, though? I mean, what else goes along with a white identity? And do you think the average white person thinks of themselves as being white before they think of themselves as being American, for example?
I honestly, I can't read their minds, so I don't know.
No, I'm not asking you to read much, but just from your interactions with them, is that the impression you get? I mean, we're not writing a scientific paper. We're just having
there's a default setting, right? There's a default setting in America without question, and that default setting is controlled. Like, I can't even say controlled. It's just there. Right, you don't even have to try to do it anymore. It's like it was a video, and this is clearly an anecdote, but it's a great example. It's a video of the 4 broadcasters who are on television, 2 of them black, 2 of them white, and the 2 white people are talking about the definitions of beauty. And the examples that they kept bringing up were white women who were certain weight, certain height, certain hairstyle, and these were examples of beauty. And the black journalists are sitting there like, what? It's because there's a default setting of expectations of culture in the United States.
Sure, but that's set by the majority.
Collectively, no one has to gather together and say, this is our white identity. Like, America is born out of white identity.
Yeah, but that's my point, though. I don't think white people necessarily see it as white identity. I think they see it as American identity, and they think of that as American identity because they are the majority group. I mean, it has to be that the culture is controlled by the majority group, right?
Doesn't have to be, no.
Well, isn't that aristocracy if it's not?
I mean, why would it have to be controlled by the majority group?
Because they're the majority. I mean, what sense does it make to have the society controlled by a minority from within society?
Well, I mean, why does it have to be a sense of control? Why couldn't it be a sense of consensus versus control?
Well, sure, but the consensus is always going to be the majority consensus.
Well, not necessarily, right? You have to protect the minority from the rule of the tyranny of the majority, right?
Yeah, sure, absolutely. I mean, we're talking culture. I didn't think we were talking rights. But like culturally, if you're going to be like, well, the cultural norm in this society is like, if I went to China, it'd be a Chinese woman. And, you know, I wouldn't expect it to be like a Chinese woman or something.
Yeah, I see what you're saying there. But here's a problem with that, right? When you have so much of America that has been built on backs of Americans, right? We can clearly track throughout every stage of American history where black people were there building America. And then that culture in itself has been intentionally suppressed for hundreds of years. Just let's take 64 as a turning point. 64, 65 as a turning point, right? You have baggage, cultural baggage that has to be addressed. If it's not addressed, then that dominant culture that has been there all along is content in simply thinking this is just the way it is, this is the way it should be. All along, you have been built on the backs of an entirely different culture. So I think the onus is on everyone to form a consensus that is inclusive. I don't think there's anything wrong with inclusivity.
Well, yeah, but what if they don't? What if they don't do that?
Well, then, you know, then we just let people know, hey, we're here. We're here, and our culture has been here, and this is our home just as much as anyone else. I love it when people say, go back to Africa. Actually,
you've never been to Africa.
My family's bones go back 6 generations here, as far as I can count. That's as far as I can trace. Then it hits slavery. We built this country just like anybody else. We built that. So this is our home, and we have the right to be comfortable and stretch our legs. And you know,
absolutely,
so
I totally agree.
We're saying.
No, I totally agree. And so, okay, so what would you like to see moving forward? Like, what would you? Because I mean, one thing that I just can't get past is it's the breakdown of social cohesion in the sort of thug communities that we were talking about, right? This is such an obvious problem. And it really seems, I mean, you know, I watch like the media they produce and, you know, just, and I read what they say on Twitter and stuff like that. And there seems to be a respect and sort of adulation towards this kind of gang culture. And
well,
I just look at it and think,
for it, Sargon, if you go looking for it, you can find anything, right?
Yeah,
have you?
I know. Look, I'm not saying it's all of it or anything like that. You know,
the rowdiest people I know are white boys. Like,
Yeah,
this
yeah,
is
sure,
white boys I don't even want to party with because they're just crazy as hell, right?
Sure.
So you can find thug culture anywhere.
Yeah, absolutely. But we're talking specifically about black communities who engage in this kind of culture, right?
But why would that be the impetus of the driving force behind the conversation?
Because so many of the problems for the black community comes out of this culture.
No, not necessarily, right? So even when, you know, you have people who never lived a day in their life, never lived a day in their life in the hood, getting the same type of treatment that they would have gotten if they did live in the hood, it transcends the, you know, the poverty trap of the hood.
Yeah, but the reason these sort of ghettos exist is because of this culture. I mean, there's nothing to prevent black people from actually getting married, getting jobs, getting some wealth behind them, buying a house in suburbia,
so you go with these
and
moral
on with their lives.
You default back to these moral judgments.
No, this isn't a moral judgment. This is actually a pragmatic argument.
It's quite laden with the moral judgment, right? And I'm noticing how you seamlessly go back and forth between using a class analysis and not using a class analysis, because everything that you just said has an equal explanation in terms of a class analysis. So you know,
I'm not disregarding the class analysis. I'm actually okay. We've got the class analysis. I agree with you on the class analysis. So I'm just looking at it from someone whose family worked out of the working class and what they did to achieve that, and that's what the black community has to do.
So what if all the white?
No one's going to give you any money. No one's going to give you.
The white families in Appalachia, right? That's kind of the cliche example. Yeah. What about the white families that are born into poverty, stay in poverty? They may or may not get married. What of all of them?
What about them? What difference do they make to the black community?
Should they? Is the only reason that they're in poverty is because they didn't get married?
No, I think there's some severe cultural issues with them as well, to be honest.
Okay, so we're finding we can find these examples of.
Yeah, and if I was talking to someone from Appalachia who didn't understand why they were so poor and backwards, I would give them some advice too. But we are talking about the black community because that's what Black Lives Matter is worried about, right?
Right, and as we worry and focus on all of these issues, that's the recurring theme. And unfortunately, I mean, I would love to keep talking with you, but I think my time might be running down a little low here. But as they focus on these issues and they focus with a laser-like intensity on the black community, part of the calculation that is being used as a political spin and propaganda is that is a problem in and of itself. Right. So if Black Lives Matter is focusing on all these things that you're saying about the black community, what's the problem with Black Lives Matter then?
Well, the problem is for me, the problem is the underlying ideology that isn't being addressed. But if we're to ignore that and move on to like, okay, what kind of future do Black Lives Matter want to build for black people? Then the question is, okay, what can be done in black communities? And I really think the first thing that needs to be done is the total discrediting of this kind of gangster culture. It's a dead end.
I tell you what, if you spend the better part of your day discrediting all of the fringe elements in white culture or even in Gamergate culture.
I'm not even talking about fringe elements though. I mean, I think that there are a lot of people who indulge in this kind of community and in this kind
well, I mean, that's a big assertion. Like there's a lot of people who, I mean, I can counter assert with Anecdote, right? There's a lot of people who grow up in the hood and they manage to come out of the hood without indulging into this culture. So without like actual data, we're both just making speculations here.
Well, no, yeah, I know. I'm not closely defining my terms, but we can agree that these are things that occur. I'm not. This is the thing, right? At no point am I making a moral judgment about any of this. This is what I mean. It's strange that you're saying, "Oh, you're making a moral judgment." I'm not. I don't think any of these people are bad people because of their circumstances. I don't think that they're bad people because they fall into this culture.
I see in it, the moral judgment that I see in it is, and I'll be transparent here. I may be applying to you the same same driving force of evangelical Christians, which I'm sure you're not.
You know,
No, I'm an atheist.
I'd be applying that to you, to be fair, in terms of a moral judgment. But when I see you take away the class analysis, you know, like on a fly, take away the class analysis.
I'm actually trying to build on top of it. I'm actually trying to build on top of the class analysis.
On top of it, without giving it the context of what wealth actually looks like in America. And wealth in America cannot always is connected to the previous generation, and you simply can't finish this conversation without giving credence to the things that actually targeted the Black community systemically for hundreds of years to extract wealth. So to take away that component of it and simply say the reason that they have a problem is because they're not married. Well, then, I mean, I guess the answer is just to go through and make sure everybody gets married. But that's an American problem at this point. I mean, it might be a global problem, far as I know, but I know for sure it's an American problem.